Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? All right, still almost every day, an article about the change in the Iraqi dinar rate. And what it does, pump a lot of hope into the whole dinar arena. But what I keep telling people is you got to listen to where the information is coming from. If the CBI is talking about it, which that's not going to ever happen, they'll never openly talk about changing the rate in public. Now, they might deny rumors, but you're not going to see them come out and go, hey, guess what we're going to do next week? Yeah, we're going to go ahead and change the rate. Because of the repercussions, you would see people flocking over and buying dinar, speculators, long before the rates change. And it could cost Iraq a ton of money in the long haul. That, and it's illegal to do so. You can have people within the government speculate or make all kinds of false claims. That's a whole other story altogether. Anyways, I thought you guys might like this picture of my stacks. What do you think? Before we get started, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, go to our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get an additional half ounce of silver with your order. In addition to that, it's a small way to help out the channel. Also, I want to remind everybody there is alternate platforms that I'm on. We have Pimpy's News Network, which is usually a place where we put videos that I cannot play on YouTube because its content is sensitive to YouTube. Also, come join us on Facebook. We do have a group called Pimpy's Investment Chat. I encourage you to come join us because over here we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currencies and other investments as well. You can also find me over here on Twitter, as well as MeWe and YouTube. The link for all these social media platforms will be down below in the description. If for whatever reason I get knocked off of YouTube, you can find me over there at those other locations. Okay, so there is a lot going on over in Iraq. It looks like Kurdistan's going to cut a deal with people over there in Erbil. It looks like they come up with an agreement as far as the budget is concerned and anticipating some changes in the gas laws. But let's get to the article that matters most because everybody is talking about it. And you see a lot of people bickering. Look, there's people who've been dealing with the Iraqi dinar now for 15, 20 years. You know what I mean? And so when you get all excited about something that they've been through at least 100 times, they tend to be a little negative about it. So just kind of bear with them. If you've been dealing with the Iraqi dinar for a couple of years, you'll understand where they're coming from. It's frustrating to hear so many people out there pumping up all this hopium. Not just that, but then watching Iraq take what looks like great strides to move forward and then turn around and take about 10 steps back. It's frustrating. But I still don't give up. I have all my dinars just tossed over there in the drawer. And when the time comes and it hits a rate that I'm happy with, I'll exchange it. So let's get into this. And this is why I'm saying you have to pay attention to who's giving you the news. Will Iraq's new government reconsider dinar exchange rate? And you can see right here, it says a number of leaders of the coordinating framework. The coordinating framework, who has been benefiting from putting out there all kinds of rumors, causing speculators to run and grab up the dinar, and then they make money off this. Like I was stating before, unless you hear it come from the Central Bank of Iraq, I wouldn't trust the news too much, especially since we're talking about the coordinating framework. The bloc leading the new Iraq government are pushing to increase the value of the dinar in an attempt to support the poor. Yet some argue the measure could backfire. They remind me a lot of Democrats. So I say, oh, this is for the people, this is for the poor, or this is for minorities. And if you don't agree with it, well, then you're just a bigot and a racist. See, the people that are in charge of the Iraqi central bank, they understand the criteria that is necessary for them to make a positive rate change. There's a reason why they devalued the dinar again and said it was going to be that way for 5 years. And just having a bunch of people from the coordination framework trying to put pressure on the CBI governor to change the rate. I remember when Maliki was a prime minister and Dr. Shabibi was in charge of the Central Bank of Iraq. He pressured him to change the rate. And when Dr. Shabibi was at a conference out of town, They went ahead and changed the rate and then blamed Dr. Shabibi for it. That's how sneaky and corrupt Maliki is. So the coordinating framework are trying to pressure the Central Bank of Iraq, and they're making claims that, well, this will help the poor. The last thing you want to do is something that would be a temporary fix but causes more long-term damage than just sticking to your guns, sticking to the reform, and not causing this country to go backwards. This prominent Iraqi politician and former Prime Minister Maliki called on the government of Mohammed Soudani to increase the exchange rate of the Iraqi Dinar against the US dollar by 5.5% in the coming days. So what does that bring us down to around, 13750? So you would get 1,375 dinars instead of 1,450, somewhere around in that neighborhood, or 1,350. Amid warning by economists that such a move could spiral the economy into recession. Now, keep in mind, Maliki owns a bank. Him and Khalid, they're both bank owners, and they were making money off the currency auctions, millions of dollars. So when they devalued the currency, it affected them. They were losing millions. So this is no surprise to me that Maliki is pushing to have the rate change happen. A rate change in a positive direction would cause speculators to go running over to the Iraqi dinar in anticipation of a much bigger rate change, and he knows this. The previous government, headed by Al-Kadhimi, had launched a financial and physical reform plan known as the White Papers, mainly aimed at restoring balance to the economy, reducing the public sector and investing financial resources in improving public services, and developing productive sectors. The White Papers confirmed that the previous exchange rate was detrimental to the agriculture and the industrial sectors. So, in December of 2020, the Central Bank of Iraq devalued the dinar against the US dollar, which dropped from 1,882 dinars for every dollar and increased it up to 1,450 dinars for every dollar. Due to the financial crisis that hit the country in the wake of the drop in oil prices in the global market to less than $30 a barrel. Gosh, I remember that's crazy. And the increase of the Iraqi government spending on state employee salaries. So under Maliki and them, they saw something ridiculous, like the state employees got 10 raises within a 2-year period, which was never done before. Well, that's Maliki covering his friends and trying to buy love is what he was trying to do. To secure these salaries, Iraq had to resort to loans from banks and to the reduction of bonds to the Ministry of Finance, which amounted to more than 30 trillion dinars, which is $20.6 billion. See, that's what I'm talking about. When you get a corrupt government and all they care about is themselves and not the Iraqi people, this is the result. Sure, they got pay raises and they ran schemes that made millions of dollars off the auction, but nothing positive happened for the Iraqi people. Said in a press statement, the central bank at the time said that the structural distortion in the Iraqi economy impoverished public finances and restricted the ability of reform due to the economic policy leadership and the primacy of politicians' priorities over the economy and its stability. After the reconsideration of the exchange rate, a strong current emerged led by a number of politicians, most notable Soudani, who called for restoring the dollar exchange rate to the previous value. Soudani had argued at the time that the devaluation of the dinar would trigger a revolution of the hungry. Well, I think now that he is the prime minister and he sees that, well, they're not really rising up to a revolution. It's just all hyperbolic. That's what politicians do. You notice now he is backtracking. He's saying, well, it's not up to me. He don't even want the responsibility. He just says, it's not up to me. It is up to the Central Bank of Iraq, and he supports that. He said back then, despite the wave of rejections, the new dollar exchange rate served a number of local industries that were able to compete with imported goods and achieve self-sufficiency. Imports decreased by $21.5 billion in 2019 to $15.6 billion in 2021. And you can thank Al-Kadhimi for that. Great move. What that means is with the devalued currency, it allows them to be very competitive on the international scene as far as goods are concerned, because they can sell their goods cheaper than other people because of the cheaper labor and the devalued dollar. Moreover, foreign investors rushed to invest in private and mixed companies at more than $35 million in 2021. Of course they are. That's what these globalists do. They do what they can to devalue the country's currency, then go in there and they rape them of all of their resources. And they do it really cheap. Iraq's exports of other commodities, excluding crude oil, increased by more than 400 million during the same year to reach 4.6 billion, up from 3.8 billion in 2020. In 2022, this upward trend was countered by the repercussions of the RONA pandemic. Once at the helm, Soudani backtracked. He now argues that the Central Bank of Iraq, which is the independent body, is the authority competent to decide on the exchange rate and that the government cannot interfere. Man, that sounds familiar. It's like Biden saying he's going to do student forgiveness on the loans. The president can't do that. It takes Congress to do that. But it gives him an opportunity to point fingers and blame somebody else and say, I wanted to, but I didn't do it. He knew he couldn't keep that promise, just like over here, these politicians claiming they can change the exchange rate when they know they can't. On Halloween, Soudani met with the central bank governor, Mustafa Khalid, and two discussed the monetary policies and developments. Ever since Soudani took office, the market has been witnessing a stagnation phase. Businessmen and citizens, worry of devaluation of the dinar, cut their purchases of assets to avoid any future losses ensuing from the exchange rate differences. Kadimi's government was unable to remedy the negative implications of the dinar devaluation, in particular those affecting the poor classes. Look, it's really hard to do that. You know, when you devalue your currency, it affects the poor because they have less purchasing power. And what are you going to do? If they get financial aid, well, sure, you can increase it, but then that almost defeats the whole purpose of devaluing your currency. That means that the government is having issues with meeting their budget demands, and that devaluing the currency is one of the things they resort to. So the last thing you want to do is increase the financial aid or the government aid to the poor people because you can't afford it. Said that the government had allocated more than $6 billion to support the vulnerable groups, but Parliament reduced it to less than $1 billion. Well, at least Kadimi tried to do something. Khalid had asserted that the devaluation of dinar added to the general budget 23.5 trillion dinars, 16.2 billion. So this allows them to pay off old debt with cheaper dollars is what it is. The central bank warned that reconsidering the exchange rate would confuse local markets, threaten investments, lead to economic stagnation, weaken confidence in the monetary policy and the value of the local currency, increase in speculation in foreign currencies, and promote hoarding of foreign currencies as a safe haven, like the US dollar. It noted that the old exchange rate provided imported goods and services with a competitive advantage, which prevented the advancement of local products. Economists had warned against restoring the dinar exchange rate to the previous rate in the coming days, arguing this measure would create problems that cannot address during the next 2 years. So the central bank is telling you right there, at the very minimum, you're looking at 2 years. The very minimum. Now, that's if the Central Bank of Iraq is the final say-so, and Maliki doesn't find a way to hamstring. So you have an economic expert saying the economy would collapse and all goods would be sold and bought in US dollars only, just like we're seeing over there in Zimbabwe. He said that increasing the value of the dinar would also lead to problems in terms of contracts between the government and the private sector, as well as between companies and retail business owners. These issues cannot be resolved easily. The instability of the exchange rate would also affect the investment environment. The Iraqi dinar is not supposed to bear the brunt of the financial policy's problems. Dagger urged the government to cut the state employees' salaries, which amounted to more than 63 trillion dinars, which is $43 billion, and to allocate the savings made from this reduction for achieving economic development. He pointed out that the fiscal policy remains marred by populism, as the government refuses to cut the salaries of the employees, impose taxes, or reduce public spending. According to Saleh, a government financial advisor, there may be an option to gradually increase the value of the dinar. Any future adjustments of the exchange rate must be gradually implemented over a 1-year period to provide an appropriate climate for price adjustment. Returning the dinar to the previous exchange rate against the dollar is impossible because this would drain reserves and burden public finances by more than $16 billion. See, this is what I'm talking about. When these people out there in the dinar world are talking about the rate change and everything else, they don't even think about these things because they don't know about them. They don't even explain to people about this. I stated before that a change in the exchange rate would cause serious problems to the economy, and they just can't afford that right now. Now, the best move is to do it in increments, and that's what it sounds like Saleh is saying. Look, do it in small doses, yearly. That sounds nice. I would love to see it go up every year. Now, I know people out there going, no way, Pimpy. Oh, yes, way. At least it's going in the right direction. It might be baby steps, but I'd rather have 1,000 baby steps to get there than to sit here for years and years with no change or devaluation. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think. I look forward to your comments, and I will get back at you later. I'm out.